Hello friends, welcome back to ProsTheHub. I am Dr. Jolsna and this is our second session of prosthetic rehabilitation of dentate maxillectomy patient. So we have discussed till the obturator processes and the classification in our previous session. In this session, we will be discussing briefly the various obturators and let us see the contents. In the obturator processes, we have already covered the definition and classification in the previous session. So in this session, we'll be briefly discussing the indications, the functions and the first classification in detail that was based on the phase of prosthetic construction. The first, the surgical obturator processes, principles related to its design, fabrication and use, the post-surgical or the interim or the transitional obturator processes, its design, fabrication and use, and finally the definitive obturator processes. So before getting into detail, I request everyone to please do like and share my videos if you're finding them useful and comment your feedback below the video. If you have any suggestions or any queries or any topic that needs to be discussed, do comment below the video or you can directly mail me at this mail ID. So let's start. The indications of an obturator are to obturate the defect temporarily during the period of surgical correction. It also acts as a scaffold or a frame over which the tissues can be shaped by a surgeon, and it also helps to improve the aesthetics and self-image by restoring the facial form, thereby helping in psychological support to the patient. In case of large defects where primary closure is not possible or where the reconstructive surgery outcome cannot be predicted, or when the blood supply is affected in case of radiation therapy, or where there is high chance of recurrence, you can go for an obturator. And when the patient's age and general condition contraindicate the reconstructive or the plastic surgery, then also you can go for an obturator. Coming to the functions, so the obturator helps to keep the wound or the defective area clean, thereby enhancing the healing of the defect. It helps in re-establishing the palatal condor or the soft palate that helps to restore the patient's speech. It can also be used to correct the lip and cheek positions. It avoids the use of a nasogastric tube and it improves mastication and deglutition. It prevents the flow of exudates into the mouth and can be used as a stent to the dressings. So as a whole, it benefits the morale of the patient with maxillary defects. Now let us see the various obturators in detail. The first one, the surgical obturator. So the definition says a temporary maxillofacial prosthesis inserted during or immediately following surgical or traumatic loss of a portion or all of one or both maxillae and contiguous alveolar structures. So you can see here, this is a base plate type appliance that is fabricated from a preoperative cast impression and inserted after surgery in the operating room. So the main function of this surgical obturator is to restore the form and function immediately after surgery and also to promote healing, that is by keeping the defective area clean. So usually surgical obturator is worn for a period of 5 to 10 days or a week after surgery. Coming to advantages of surgical obturator, so it provides the surgeon with an accurate, stable and a clean scaffold to support the surgical dressing. Obturator acts as a barrier between the surgical dressing and the oral cavity. So the main advantage is that the patient will not be able to feel the extent of the defect or the surgical dressing with his or her tongue during the initial healing phase. It helps in nourishment without a nasogastric tube, and it enables the patient to speak normally, that is by restoring the palatal condors, and it minimizes the initial feelings of loss that the patient will have after realizing the extent of the surgical defects. So these are the advantages of surgical obturator. Now coming to the principles related to design of immediate surgical obturators. So the first one is the obturator should terminate short of the skin graft mucosal junction initially, and soon after the surgical pack is removed, you can extend the obturator into the defect with the help of relining materials. And the obturator should be simple, lightweight and inexpensive. Clasp can be added to the surgical obturator if it is a very small defect. So it helps in retention. But if it is a large defect, then you have to go for wiring of the processes to the remaining natural teeth. So for this, holes should be placed in the periphery to permit suturing to the borders of the defect, or to wire the prosthesis onto the remaining teeth. In case of an edentulous patient, retention is through a bone screw that is being drilled through the tissue and the palatal bone, keeping the denture as a surgical guide. So this will help to secure the prosthesis. So this is bone screw retention. Or you can go for sutures, that is holes of 2 mm diameter are placed every centimeter all around the periphery of the denture, and this can be sutured onto the borders. And finally, the circumzygomatic wiring, and here the wires are passed across the zygomatic arch and drilled through holes placed in the premolar areas. So this is the most invasive technique and it causes highest morbidity while removing these wires. So this is seldom used. So this is circumzygomatic wiring. So there are three types of retention in edentulous patient, that is the bone screw, the suturing and circumzygomatic wiring. Now coming back, the normal palatal contours should be reproduced in order to restore the patient's speech as well as mastication and deglutition. And posterior occlusion should not be established, especially on the defect side, until the surgical wound is well organized. You can restore the anteriors in order to enhance aesthetics, but posterior occlusion should not be established. And if you are using the existing partial prosthesis to be an immediate surgical obturator, you can reduce the buccal flange in the defect area and use the existing partial prosthesis. So these are the principles related to design of immediate surgical obturators. Now let us see the steps in fabrication of a surgical obturator. First of all, pre-surgical impressions has to be made, cast port mounted on an articulator, and the mock surgery is done. Once that is over, the interdental and the soft tissue undercuts have to be blocked out and the cast should be duplicated. Now the wire clasps are adapted, wax up has to be done. The fabrication can be by processing using a heat cure resin or by direct method using an auto-polymerizing resin. Now the obturator is retrieved, placed on the duplicated cast and adjusted, sterilized and inserted at the time of surgery. And it is always advantageous to fabricate the surgical obturator using clear acrylic resin because it helps to facilitate visualization of the underlying tissues at the time of surgery while placement and also during the initial healing phase. And the surgical obturator along with the surgical dressing is usually removed approximately 1 week post-operatively. So that was about the surgical obturator. Coming to interim, post-surgical or temporary obturator, the GPT defines it as a fixed or a removable dental prosthesis or maxillofacial prosthesis designed to enhance aesthetics, stabilization and function for a limited period of time, after which it is to be replaced by a definitive dental or maxillofacial prosthesis. So here you can see on the oral side, it will have the palatal contour, the alveolar ridge and usually without teeth, and on the inside, that is the tissue side, it will have a bulb that is projecting into the defect area, and this bulb has to be lined with soft relining materials which has to be changed at regular intervals. Now, why do we need an interim prosthesis? So there are several reasons for constructing an interim prosthesis. The first one, the periodic addition of this lining materials onto the surgical obturator can increase the bulk as well as weight of the prosthesis, and also these temporary materials tends to become rough and unhygienic with time. Next one is, if there is chance to add the teeth onto the prosthesis, it can be of psychological benefit to the patient. And interim prosthesis can be used as a backup prosthesis when definitive prosthesis needs repair works. So these are the main reasons, and the interim obturator prosthesis bridges the gap between the immediate surgical obturator and the definitive prosthesis. And a definitive prosthesis is not indicated until the surgical site is healed and dimensionally stable, and also the patient should be prepared physically and emotionally for the restorative care that may be necessary. Coming to the design and fabrication of the post-surgical obturator. First, the post-operative primary impression has to be made with a stock tray and a reversible hydrocolloid. So usually the stock tray is modified by removing the flange area in the defect side. Now casts are made and an acrylic custom tray with a high bulb area that is projecting into the defect is made, and then the final impression has to be made with irreversible hydrochloride or better with polysulfide rubber based impression material, and patient's head movements has to be made. That is, the patient's head should be first moved forward and then right and left laterally and then backward and forward again, keeping the patient's head in the operator's arms. So this head movement will help the impression material to flow properly into the undercut areas and thereby improving the retention. So using the polysulfide impression, it is less likely to displace the tissues in the defect and the material is less likely to flow into undesirable areas. So it's always better to take the final impression using polysulfide rubber base impression. Now after the final impression is recorded, the casts are made, surveying has to be done, clasps are made. The number of teeth should be restricted to aesthetic needs. That is, the occlusal function in early healing period should be discouraged, because restoring occlusal function in the early healing period will likely result in movement of the obturator into and out of the defect, which can result in abrasion as well as irritation of the soft tissue that are contacting the obturator within the defect. And if you are converting a surgical obturator to a post-surgical obturator prosthesis, then relining has to be done. Now after the post-surgical obturation fabrication, then you have to carefully evaluate the soft tissue contact within the defect by using pressure indicating paste or any soft resilient material on a regular basis, and this is very much essential for proper healing. Now coming to the considerations of the post-surgical obturator prosthesis. So the bulb area, it's not necessary with a central palatal defect that is of small to average size, and it is not necessary in surgical or immediate temporary prosthesis. And the bulb should be usually hollow, that helps in speech resonance and also to lighten the weight on the unsupported side. It should not be so high as to cause the eye to move during mastication. Next, the post-surgical obturator should be one piece if possible, in order to have better patient acceptance and also color matching. And the bulb area can be open or closed superiorly. So some authors prefer the bulb area to be closed, because otherwise it leads to accumulation of the nasal secretion, resulting in odor as well as increased weight. Whereas some authors like Bumer support the concept that the bulb area should be open, because open obturators will be of less weight and it is easy to adjust, and it is also a better configuration for an improved speech. And if there is a chance of accumulation of nasal secretion, you can make a diagonal opening in the inferior lateral floor of the open top obturator that opens up to the cheek area for the drainage of the secretions. And it should not be so large as to interfere with the insertion of if the mouth opening is restricted. So these are the considerations of post-surgical obturator prosthesis. Next, the final one, that is the definitive obturator. So as per GPT, it is defined as a maxillofacial prosthesis that replaces part or all of the maxilla and associated teeth lost due to surgery or trauma. So usually a definitive obturator is fabricated around 3 to 4 months after surgery from the post-surgical maxillary cast, and the timing of construction actually depends upon the size of the defect, the progress of healing, and the prognosis of the tumor control, the effectiveness of the present obturator, and the presence or absence of any teeth. And before fabrication of a definitive obturator, the mouth preparation has to be done. That is, every effort should be made to maintain the remaining maxillary teeth in their optimum state of health in order to act as suitable abutments for the definitive obturator. Also, definitive periodontal therapy should be carried out. Coming to the fabrication of definitive obturator. So similar to that of the interim obturator fabrication, first we have to fabricate a custom tray and then record the master impression on the custom tray with the help of polyvinyl siloxane impression material. Now this master impression is actually used to fabricate the cast metal framework of the prosthesis. After the framework is fabricated, this framework is used as a tray to record the final impression with polysulfide impression material, and this technique is called as altered cast impression technique. So first we have to make the custom tray and record the master impression. So as you can see in the picture, First, the defect is recorded with the silicon putty, and the remaining area, the impression is completed with a medium bodied polysiloxane. So while taking this impression, prior to this impression, you have to block the median palatal undercut with gauze that is lubricated with petrolatum, or else the bony undercuts in this area will result in distortion of the palatal portion of the impression. Now this is the master impression. So the use of the master impression is to make the framework, and once the framework is fabricated, we have to physiologically adjust it with the help of appropriate disclosing medium. And once the framework seats properly and has been physiologically adjusted, this framework is used as another tray. So how it is? Tray resin is added onto the framework and also extended into the defect. So as you can see in the picture, the tray resin is added onto the framework, and then it is seated in the patient's mouth and checked, examined for extension and proximity to the tissues. So this acts as a tray for the final impression. So before impression, we have to do the border molding, and border molding is done with the help of modeling compound. So modeling compound is added to the tray material, and we have to obtain the desired extension. So as you can see in the next pictures, the modeling compound is added and the extensions are and the borders are molded. Now once the border molding has been completed, next the final impression, that is with the polysulfide impression material. So why we are using polysulfide impression material is because it is less likely to displace the tissues in the defect, and also it's less likely to flow into the undesirable areas. That's why we are using polysulfide impression material. So for this, the adhesive is applied onto the framework, and then elastic impression material is used to complete the impression. That is, first the polysulfide impression material has to be injected into the defect, followed by placement of the loaded tray with the material. And while making the impression, the patient is directed to make eccentric mandibular movements, and the impression is removed and examined for tissue adaptation, proper extension and extensive displacement of the tissue. Now once this is completed, we have to follow the routine steps, that is the jaw relation, cast mounting on the articulator, teeth setting, the trial, and finally denture fabrication. So this technique is called as altered cast impression. So as a whole, we are recording 3 times. That's the primary impression, then the master impression, which is used to fabricate the framework, and this framework is used as another tray to make the master or the final impression. Now in order to fabricate an obturator for a large defect, O and Romanes have suggested a technique that is called as a double processing technique. So let's see what it is. So here the first picture shows the post-operative intraoral view of the surgical defect, and next we have to make the altered cast impression, and the altered master cast is made with the metal framework that is shown in the second picture. Now onto this altered master cast, a layer of base plate wax is adapted, as you can see in the picture, which extends to the surgical defect and the residual palatal shelf area. Now this one is flasked and packed and processed in the usual way. So once processing is done, we get the heat processed record base. So this heat processed record base is trimmed with openings in the palatal and superior aspect. So we get a record base. Now this record base is placed in the patient's mouth, and then it has to be refined with the pressure indicating paste. Once the refining is done, the record base is placed again on the cast, and the palatal opening is closed with the layer of base plate wax, and then build up of wax occlusal rim. So once the rim is made, then the usual method, that is the jaw relation, is done, teeth setting, trial and processing again. So this technique of two-step processing has got 2 advantages. One is that it ensures an even thickness of the obturator, and it also minimizes the weight. Second one is that the processed record base allows maximum extension into the defect. So it has got improved support, retention and stability during the jaw relation time. So as a whole, the overall result will be of improved support, retention and stability. So this technique is called as double processing technique, where you process the obturator in 2 steps. So this is the end of our current session, and another question you can expect in maxillofacial processes in this topic is hollow bulb obturator. Do comment below this video if you want a separate session on hollow bulb obturator. So thank you all for watching my video. Please do like, share my videos if you're finding them useful. If you are first to this channel, please do subscribe my channel and support. If you have any queries or suggestions or any topic that needs to be discussed, comment below this video, or you can directly mail me at this mail ID. So thank you all once again. We'll see in our next session.